Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Connor Mobley, and today we're going to take a look at choice theory. It's very interesting to take a look at this theory and at its founder and different nuances and takes on it and its characteristics because this theory is very different from the other theories that we have gone over in the past, like psychoanalysis, Adler, existentialism, and client-centered therapy. And it kind of seems like it was by design made this way. It was by design of the creator of this theory that it is almost in response to those other theories and what uh, the creator of this theory thought about them and the different take that he has on counseling as a whole. And I found this theory very interesting, and I'm excited to be able to talk about it with you guys and give my take on, give my opinion and take on it, and also get to hear your guys' take on it in class. So, before we do a deep dive and kind of get into the nitty gritty of this theory, I would like to take a second and just do a quick disclaimer on a part of this theory, and that part is kind of the name of it because throughout my reading and kind of the different interviews that I listened to and other things like that, they people use the terms choice theory and reality therapy interchangeably to describe this theory. And so choice theory is the thing that reality therapy delivers. And so I use the example of this coffee truck that is, as you can see, Redbud Coffee Company. It's a coffee company that's from back home in central Illinois. And hopefully by referencing this coffee company, it sends me free coffee because it's fantastic. But anyway, so the coffee truck delivers the coffee like reality therapy delivers choice theory. Reality therapy is the vehicle by which choice theory is applied in somebody's life, just like the coffee truck is the vehicle that delivers delicious coffee to people that need caffeine. So, anyway, now that we have that kind of settled, I would like to go into the key people of this theory. And those key people are Dr. William Glasser on the right, who is the creator of this theory and way of therapy. And then on the left, we have Robert E. Webolding, who I'm just going to call Dr. Bob because I feel like I'm just mispronouncing his name. And both these people are key in choice theory, and they've developed ideas and facets of it over time that has made into a full-fledged school of thought. So now let's dive into the creator, Dr. William Glasser. He was born in 1925 in Cleveland, Ohio, and he earned his medical degree and BA at Case Western Reserve University. And then he furthered his training into psychiatric training at UCLA, which he did in association with the VA in Los Angeles to receive his psychiatric training. And so the birthplace of reality therapy is out of his work at the VA, which actually, once taking a look at his career in psychiatry and counseling, the reality therapy began as he was disagreeing with the VA on the way that they viewed patients. The psychiatrists there at the VA were not using the Freudian ideas that they so vehemently supported. And so he saw that as saying that Freud was wrong, and he also disagreed with Freud prior. And so he saw that as a way of saying that Freud was not right. So he became very anti Freudian, and he began using his own ideas at the VA, which, in his own words, got him kicked out of the Veterans Administration in LA. He then moved on to be a psychiatrist at Ventura School for Girls, where he told clients to focus on reality and change the choices that they make. He took a very different approach than Freud, which was very on the past and transference and countertransference and all that stuff. And he focused purely on reality and the choice they made in reality, did not look into the past as much or at all, which is kind of what makes this theory controversial. But we'll get to that in a little bit. And so in 1962, he started giving lectures on reality psychiatry, which then he changed the name to reality therapy later on, because he realized that most of the people that came to his lectures were counselors and school administrators and teachers who were not psychiatrists whatsoever. So he decided to change the name to kind of fit better with who were his audience for this theory. And having said all this, I kind of want to give some context into the 1960s, which or into the era that he created this theory, which was the 1960s. And I feel like the best way to give context into this time frame is through looking at the music and poetry of the early 1960s. Obviously, the 60s is famous for the music they created and the poetry that was created out of it. And I believe that it truly does display what was going on in that era and gives context to this theory. So first we have Sitting on the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding. This song really doesn't have that much to do with the giving context to the time of this theory. It's just my favorite song, and so I thought that I should put it into this slideshow. And then also I kind of say I was covering the music of the early 60s or the 60s in general, without bringing up the Beatles and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, as they were and still are one of the most famous bands ever. And they are obviously an amazing band. But then I'd like to be able to get into the music that showed the context of the 1960s. And three of those songs I felt displayed this was Respect by Aretha Franklin, Times They Are A-Changin' by Bob Dylan, and A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. And all three of these songs touch on the fact the 1960s were a time of great change in America and the world in general. And they show the status quos were being challenged and things were being flipped. Civil rights, women's rights, and a ton of other stuff were being challenged in government and the culture in general. And so much change was happening that's what the 60s are known for. And you can kind of see that in reality therapy, because so much of it is on change that the client makes themselves, which reflects the 1960s. And also, I wanted to give kind of a shout out to one of my favorite professors that I've ever had, Dr. Louis, who introduced me to poetry, Latin American poetry, that really exemplified the change that was happening in Latin America as well. So three of the people I chose the poem that I chose was Guantanamera by Jose Marti, which is all about showing the need for Cuban independence and showing the reasons why they were striving for that in the early 1900s. And then it was again used by the Sandpipers in the 60s to give a voice for the independence movement that was shaping in Cuba. And then to other Latin Americans that just used poetry to really show the change that was happening in other countries was Pablo Neruda in Chile, and then Elena Poniatowska in Mexico. Pablo Neruda's poetry was so vehemently opposed by the government in Chile that he was actually exiled from Chile, and it took him, I believe, over 20 years to be able to enter Chile again without being threatened. And then you also have Elena Poniatowska, who is an amazing poet from Mexico, who used so much irony and humor to show how, in most ways, stupid the laws against women were, or the civil injustice against them that was happening in Mexico. And she used that irony and humor to show that, and show how humor was in a facet that it was like that in Mexico at the time. So out of the 60s and out of Dr. Glasser creating his theory all about making change in somebody's life, there came a period that's still in today, we're still in today, of expansion. And this all started with Robert E. Webolding, Dr. Bob, who started his work as a Catholic priest, teacher, elementary school counselor, and consultant, not all at the same time, but in succession, prior to receiving his PhD in counseling. After receiving his doctorate, he attended a lot of workshops and a lot of sessions over many different theories, and he found reality therapy to fit his worldview best, and so he chose that. He took it out for a few dates and married it as Dr. Wagner says. And after doing this, in the years to come, he would add so much to the choice theory, and he would also bring it and expand it throughout the world. He's responsible for bringing adapting choice theory to other countries. He adapted the therapy to places in Europe, Asia, Middle East, and he did this by adapting the theory so that it was applicable to those other countries and did not just stick with the American tendencies of that theory. So having kind of gone over the creators of it, giving context to why a theory is like it is, I want to get into the characteristics of reality therapy. And the first one is the reality therapy emphasizes choice and responsibility. Reality therapists believe that people have more control over behavior than they think, and that therapists should focus on the areas where choices can be made. So they feel like that Freud and other theories kind of made people feel like they didn't have that much control and they were just a product of their environments and they didn't have any control over any of their life. And so Dr. Glasser kind of went to the other end and said, you have a ton of choice, you have a ton of responsibility in your life, so you can make the changes you need to change your life. And the second one is reject transference. So Glasser contends it is a way for clients and therapists to avoid being who they truly are and owning their choices. Glasser felt that transference was just kind of a cop-out for both sides of the counseling relationship and did not allow for them to go deeper in their relationship. And he said that if a client said or was showing signs that the therapist was treating the therapist like a mom or dad, the therapist is to say just outright that I am not your dad. Do not treat me like that. I am my own person. Next, we have it keeps the therapy in the present. And this is kind of a big overarching theme. This is kind of what makes the theory controversial, is because Glasser believed that the past is not relevant to the present, and the past may have contributed to the current problem, but the past is never the problem. So he did not believe in really exploring the past that much. He did not believe that the past had a lot to offer, but that what matters the choices that the client was making in the present. And then if the client brings up the past, the therapist won't completely deny it. He won't just completely shut it down, but he or she will say, the past is the past, and now is the time to look forward. And then Dr. Bob said that history is not destiny to his clients, and that they are free to make choices even though the external world may limit those choices, that they have a lot of control of their life, going back to the first point of the characteristics of reality therapy, and that the client does not need to keep going back to the past to fix issues, but they need to just fix the present right now. So you can see how that is a little bit controversial, especially looking at all the other theories that we have gone over already. The fourth point is avoid focusing on symptoms. Reality therapists believe that focusing on symptoms will not allow for the change to happen, and reality is due to the total behavior that they're choosing. So reality therapists believe you should not just focus on the symptoms of a person's life, but just you need to focus on the total behavior, because that will give you a full picture on who the person is and what they are feeling. Glasser believes that most symptoms are caused by unhappy relationships. He believes that, actually, he believes in stronger. He believes that pretty much all symptoms of unhappiness and feeling cheated in this life, or feeling that you haven't gotten life to the fullest extent, is because of an unhappy relationship in your life. And so he also, another aspect of avoiding symptoms is that he feels like not focusing on them shortens therapy considerably. He feels like it helps get the patient in and out a little bit quicker, and that it saves the patient time and money. saves the client time and money. And so the last facet of of reality therapy is that it challenges traditional views of mental illness. Glasser, so like the DSM-5 and other pieces of what makes up diagnoses in mental health, Glasser does not believe in mental illness and will only use the DSM-5 when it is needed for insurance or other legal stuff. He did not believe in giving patients meds. He never really wanted to do that. He believed that diagnoses were just kind of cop-outs as well, and that anything could be kind of sorted out by fixing a person's choices. And so Dr. Bob, on the other hand, uses the DSM-5 and other things of diagnosis creatively. He uses them to kind of dig deeper. He uses those questions to dig deeper into who the person are and the choices that that person is making. And he cites the Ericksonian principle that people don't have problems, but solutions that haven't worked. He reframed negative behavior so that the clients sees themselves in a different light, so the client will search for more effective changes. So as you can see, reality therapy is very about choices, making changes in a person's life, not focusing on the past, only focusing on the present, and also that choices make up everything of a person. And so to change anything, you need to change the choices you are making, which once again make it the theory very controversial, because every other theory was not all about the past, but it showed how the past played directly into the present of a client. So next, I'd like to talk about the 5 needs that Dr. Glasser emphasized as very important to every person ever. And the way the 5 needs work are, these 5 needs are integral to being happy, being content as a human being. And if you have a good, if you have substantial resources in these needs, and you have a good standing on each of these needs, then you will have your quality world, which means it's not like it's a utopia, but that all your needs are being met and you can be content. So to go over them, survival is about food and shelter, just like the basics, kind of the physical needs, and the rest of them are more psychological. So love and belonging is all about that the person has relationships and feels love and affection. Power is to achieve something, to be competent and have self-confidence. So it's not, power isn't negative in the terms of like, I want power, I want control over somebody or something, but it's, you just want to be able to be confident in who you are and be competent in what you're doing. Freedom is you're able to make your own choices and be in control of your own life. You don't feel like all your choices are made for you by someone else. You have no control, but being able to make choices about your life. The last one is fun. So it is to find pleasure in life, to play and laugh and learn. Glasser felt that to learn is a primal human trait that everyone loves to learn, and that is one of the whole points of life, and he feels like that is a main contributor into the need of fun. And then next, I would like to get into Dr. Bob's, Dr. Wobbling, huge part that he added to reality therapy, which is WDEP. I don't know if this is like WDEP or what, but the acronym is that. And so it's wants, direction, evaluation, and plan. For the wants, the key question is, what do you want? In this, you're exploring the client's quality world. It's kind of the assessment part of the reality therapy sessions. And once again, the quality world is the world where one's 5 needs are being met. It's not necessarily utopia, but it is where your needs are being met and you are content and happy. And you should be, a key part of this is asking the right questions at the right time and the right way. So this stage is all about the questions that a reality therapy asks their client, and how the answers of the client come back, and then you're questioning about those. You're just trying to figure out what are the wants, how are they meeting their needs or not meeting their needs, the 5 needs. Next is direction. The key question here is, what are you doing? So what are you doing to fulfill those 5 needs in your life? What are you not doing to fulfill those needs in your life? So they deal with problems in the present and plan for the future. Once again, not really wanting to deal with the past. They do not want to focus on the past, but purely on the present. They're always looking to what can be done now or in the future to better set the person up to fulfill their 5 needs. And they affirm feelings, but they prefer to focus on thinking and choices. Uh, Feelings are the symptoms of the choices they are making. So naturally, as I've said before, reality therapists do not want to just focus exclusively on those. Next, we have self-evaluation. The key question is, does your present behavior have a reasonable chance of getting you what you want? And will it take you in the direction you want to go? So in this question, and after it, the counselor, the reality therapist is trying to evaluate each component of their total behavior, seeing where the person is falling short, when the person is meeting their needs. And they're doing this at first for the client. They're kind of facilitating it a lot and helping out a lot. But then over time, the therapist would want the client to be able to give more and more, go through this process more and more, and do it almost as a daily exercise to see how they're fulfilling their needs. And it should, as the last point says, dissipate over time, because you, once again, and this is kind of a thing for all therapy, however, is that you don't want to be doing everything for your client, but you want them to be able to find the own areas in their life and be able to do a lot of self examination and evaluation with it. And the last point of WDEP is plan. So the key question in this is, what is your plan? What are you going to do once you leave therapy to continue to fulfill your needs in your life and continue to live happily? So reality therapy is supposed to end with a plan. They don't, just like how Dr. Wagner and Dr. L have said, it is not, you're not supposed to stay in counseling the entire time, but you're supposed to leave so that way you can go and live a healthy life. And a key part of this is the counselor figuring out the level of commitment that the client is willing to exert. And the level of commitment by a client is necessary to develop the proper plan for them. If a client is not giving, it does not seem like they will give much commitment to the plan, then the counselor will change the plan to make it more suitable for them, or he might even extend the counseling relationship so that the person get the proper help that they need, and also raise their commitment, because they want them, just as I said, to leave the counseling sessions eventually. So that is, to me, what reality therapy is. It was super cool to be able to study this theory and see what it was all about. I must say that I do not necessarily agree with it 100%. I see things that I would not necessarily want to do in a counseling relationship, like not looking into the past is very controversial to me, as I have seen in so many different, as we've seen in so many different videos in Dr. Wagner's class. Is very beneficial to do that, and also seeing Carl Rogers do that as well and then seeing Carl Rogers doing that and then going into this theory was very different. And so that is kind of my thoughts, my main thoughts with it. And I would like to leave you guys with a discussion question that we can talk about in class, but I would also like to kind of make it a part of the the form responses from you guys for this talk. The discussion question is, for class or for the responses, where do you guys, so I would take a look over the 5 needs that I went over. The 5 needs are, once again, survival, love and belonging, power, freedom, and fun. And how do you guys see yourself fulfilling those needs in your lives? How do you guys see ways to improve that, or ways that you are not improving that in your own life. And so I think that'd be just really interesting just to see what you guys think about that. And thank you guys once again for listening to this. And hope to see you guys in class later. Thank you. Bye.